Chaotic content creation will have you sitting down, opening up your laptop or your phone to start creating content, and you're like, okay, what do I talk about today? And honestly, by the time that you actually decide, you won't even feel like creating content anymore. You might think that is a discipline problem, but I am here to tell you, girl, that this is a depletion problem. And you're depleted because you are confused about the brand that you are actually building. Today, I am breaking down why that happens and why God cares about how you create content more than you think. God cares about how you create content because when you're confused, you are creating unnecessary friction, resistance, and weight in the thing that He specifically called you to do. Weight that prevents you from being able to move forward. And unfortunately, when you go looking around the internet, right, for help, like we typically do, girl, we love a good YouTube search, a Google search. Nowadays, ChatGPT search that tells us to fix the outside, the external factors, instead of fixing what's on the inside. God cares about the way that you create content because when you are sitting in a place of confusion every single time you sit down to record, you sit down to write, you sit down to figure out what you're going to be creating, it is a weight that prevents you from being able to move forward. And God is trying to use you through your process of content creation. Unfortunately, when you go looking around the internet for help like we typically do, oftentimes it's not going to give us good advice. It's going to oftentimes give us advice that tells us to fix the external factors. Like you need to have a schedule, you need to do this, you need to do that. You might want to do short form content, or you might want to start doing long form content, or you need to do better editing, or you need to have better aesthetics, and all of these things that fix the outside, but never really address what's going on internally. And something else that I've noticed is that brand strategy is not even something that is even put on the table as an option for you. And even if it is, there is an assumption that is floating around that brand strategy is all about just logos, web design, fonts, and colors, and all of these pretty things. And how does that look like on your content? And the thing is, while those things matter, that's not everything that brand strategy encompasses. And those external things, the logos, the web design, the fonts, the colors, how it applies to the content that you're creating and things like that, that's not the reason why content creation feels so heavy for you right now. Brand strategy is a need to have for people who want to show up sustainably, especially if that means they're building something that needs to live beyond the temporary social media feed, that want to live beyond just what's posted on Instagram and TikTok and a lot of other short form platforms. Sustainability in your content is not going to come from the way that your content looks or trying to figure out what should you post today. Sustainability comes from how things are clearly defined so that you can make the right decisions to move forward. Brand strategy is actually the thing that provides you clarity. And here's another way of looking at clarity and having clarity in your life. When it comes to content creation, it is a form of stewardship, right? When you are clear, you know what to do, you know when to do it, you know how to do it, and you know why you're doing it in the first place, and you even know who you're doing it for, right? That level of clarity matters to God because a confused you is not an effective you. A confused you is not an effective steward of the work that He has called you to, okay? When you don't have clarity, every piece of content that you try to sit down to create feels like another decision that you have to make in your long list of decisions that you have to make. What to say, how to say it, what to post. Is this something that's even on brand for me to post? Is this useful for the people that I want to talk to? Is this something that's even worth sharing? These are all of the questions that are running through your mind every single time you sit down to create a piece of content. Girl, that is not a creativity issue. That is a decision making issue. And I hear this actually all the time from a lot of the women that I get to work with. And they often tell me that, I love content creation. I love the process of creating content. It's actually so much fun for me. But sometimes when I sit down to actually create the content that I want to create, I feel scattered and all over the place before I even start. They've tried Notion as a system for the content creation. They've tried Airtable, right? They've learned about the different niches that they can plug into in the sub niches. They have the content pillars and they have all of these different strategies. They have the messaging pieces. They understand what top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel is, right? They understand the ins and outs of content creation. They've tried all of the things, but yet they still find themselves asking, what am I even talking about, right? Am I talking about faith? Am I talking about business? Am I talking about motherhood? Am I talking about whatever it is, insert here, girl? Am I talking about those things, right? And being in that constant state of confusion creates resistance when they're sitting down to create content because they don't have a clear center to pull from. And that's what chaotic content creation is, honey. Okay. Where literally every piece of content is another decision that you have to make in a long list of decisions that you have to make. And girl, making decisions over and over and over again gets exhausting. Okay. It gets exhausting. It gets tiring. I'm not just saying this or just pulling smoke out of thin air or smoke out of my butt, like the people like to say, right? There's actual research behind this, right? Psychology research shows that the more decisions that we're required to make on a day to day basis, the worse our ability to make them becomes over time. This is why Steve Jobs had one uniform, okay? He had one uniform that he wore every day. He wore it to the ground, and that was the only outfit that he wore because he needed his mind to run Apple as a company, and he didn't want to waste precious minutes deciding what outfit should I wear and all of the other things that might even come with deciding on your outfit, right? Like, ooh, I wonder what this person is going to think about this outfit, or I wonder if I'm going to be matching this person today. Like all of these different other questions that you might ask. He completely eliminated all of those different decisions that he's having to make, all of these questions that he's asking himself, and he's ultimately going to have to decide on so that most of his attention and his effort, his energy can go into the Apple company. This phenomenon that I'm talking about is called decision fatigue, and it is a concept that has been studied extensively by this psychologist called Roy Baumeister. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but I'm probably butchering his name. Forgive me. But in simple terms, decision making, when you make decisions on a day to day basis or on a minute by minute basis, whatever the frequency is, it's going to use your mental energy. And when that energy ultimately runs low, right, we tend to procrastinate on things. We tend to then default to maybe what the easiest option is going to be, or we might avoid things altogether and just say, you know what, I'm not even in the mood. I'm not trying to do nothing right now. You just kind of like say, I'm not doing it, which explains perfectly why you can open up your laptop or your phone, stare at the screen, dead behind staring at the screen, and suddenly not want to create anything at all. Do you see the problem? This is why God cares about how you create content. Because when you're in a constant state of chaos and confusion, it drains your energy. And when you have low energy, you are incapable of making decisions. And if you are incapable of making these decisions, you procrastinate, you give bare minimum, you may choose the easiest option, or you choose to do nothing at all. When God cares deeply about the energy that He has given you, He has given each of us different energies and different capacities to be able to do certain things. And when you lack clarity around the type of content that you need to be creating, it is an indication that you are not stewarding your energy well. You burn emotional and mental energy just trying to decide what to say before you actually even get to say it. And that is why having brand clarity and being clear on the direction that you want to take your brand goes deeper than just the aesthetics and the vibes and the logos and the colors and the visual style and all of these things, although that's a part of it. It is literally not the main thing at all. When you have clarity on your brand and what your brand stands for and the direction that you want your brand to go and your brand's voice and your brand's visual style too, and the visibility frequency that you want to show up in, including the content strategy that you have, it helps you to conserve the energy that would have naturally been spent on trying to figure out what you should create today, right? So that it is now focused more so on the work that actually matters, right? Meaning you're not having to start from scratch every single time that you sit down to create content. You already know what's going to fit into the content that you're pushing out online. You already know what doesn't. Why? Because you are very clear on your brand. You have a system for your brand. Brand clarity, having that clarity and using that clarity and turning that clarity into a system, even is what reduces this decision fatigue that we all experience in some way or another in various capacities across various areas of our lives, but especially in the way that we're showing up and doing business and in the way that we create content. When you have less decision fatigue, that means you're not going to be negotiating with yourself every single time you sit down to create. Instead, again, you conserve that energy. And in conserving that energy, it makes showing up sustainable over the long run. This is one of the primary reasons I decided to quiet quit Instagram, which is another video that I want to create around, where I understand the energy that is required to show up consistently on Instagram. You can't just show up one time per week on Instagram if Instagram is your primary platform. You have to give yourself at least 3 solid days per week to show up on Instagram. And even then, you have to consider the different formats that Instagram has and how frequently you need to show up on those, i.e., like you have the feed and then you also have stories. You might want to show up on stories every single day on Instagram, especially if it is your primary platform. And I had to understand and come into the realization that the thing that I believe that the Lord is calling me to do no longer aligns with making Instagram my primary platform, which is why I've conserved my energy and I'm putting it towards YouTube as my primary platform, because the 3 pieces of content that I was going to put out on Instagram and the showing up daily on stories that I was going to do on Instagram, all of that energy that I was going to be putting into that could easily be put into one solid piece of long form content that can easily be broken down into shorter form pieces of content that can be then repurposed across other social media platforms or on YouTube itself and things like that. I'm focusing on one solid long form piece of content because that is what conserves my energy. And the reality is, creating content entrepreneurship is not the only focus of my life. I'm also a wife. I'm also a student and I'm in school. Okay. Like I have other responsibilities and other things that I have to tend to. So, in order for me to be able to steward every aspect of my life well, okay, and reduce the decision fatigue, I need to make sure that I'm allocating my energy wisely, that I'm putting my energy towards certain things, platforms, places, strategies, systems that make sense so that I'm an effective steward of whatever it is that the Lord has called me to do, so that I'm an effective steward of the content that He is calling me to create online, right? Sustainability is going to require some form of clarity because one thing's for sure, and one of the things that I learned out of my 3 years in business is that it is very easy to get distracted by what everybody and their dad is doing. It is very easy for us to have imposter syndrome or the grass is greener syndrome or shiny object syndrome, right? It is so easy for us to have those things. And then it leaves us second guessing whether or not the strategy that we set for ourselves is going to be good enough. Is it going to work? Should this be the thing that I pursue and do and all of these things? If you're unclear on your brand, that is when the second guessing and the indecision really starts to take root here and where it starts to really play out and manifest and things like that. But when you are very clear, clarity allows you to create sustainability for yourself. And when I say sustainability, I'm not just talking about sustainability in the way that you are getting business only, but also sustainability in the way that you are showing up for your business and for content creation and things like that. When you have clarity, it reduces the decisions that you have to make on the day to day when it comes to whatever you do online. But for the sake of this video, when it comes to the content that you're creating, when your decisions are clear, your creativity has room to breathe again. When your decisions are clear, sustainability becomes a factor again. You are no longer creating out of survival or out of this innate belief that, you have to be as visible, you have to maintain visibility, you have to be visible, blah, 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 blah. No, you are creating because this is the energy that you have to allocate to content creation. And I already know what I'm saying, who I'm saying it to, why I'm saying it, how I'm saying it, all of those things. I'm very clear on that. And more than that, I'm very clear on the direction that I'm going with my brand. So it's very easy for me to determine what type of content that I need to be creating today. Okay. So listen, God cares about the way that you create content because he wants you to be an effective steward of your energy. God has given you responsibility for a myriad of things that he has given you in your life. You might have a 9 to 5 job. You might be a mom. You might be a student in school. You might be married and have a husband. You might have multiple kids, girl. You might be taking care of your family. Whatever the thing is, God has given us multiple responsibilities, and he wants us to steward each of those responsibilities well. And in order for us to do that, we must understand what our capacity is, and we must understand the things that are creating decision fatigue in our lives and create systems to disrupt that. Create systems that will disrupt the indecision that constantly comes up for us so that we can show up consistently. God cares about how you create content because ultimately, if you show up in a way that is sustainable, you are showing up as an effective steward of the work that he has called you to. Now, girl, if this episode has helped you put words into something that you have been feeling a lot lately, especially if you've been really inconsistent in the way that you've been showing up online or just very undecided about how you want to show up, you have so many ideas. You are what I like to call multi-called. You are called to multiple different things in your life. And for whatever reason in this season, it is super duper hard for you to figure out how to show up. I want you to know that you did not stumble on this video by accident, right? This is the type of work that I actively get to do with my clients, helping them get really clear on their brand so that as they show up and create the content online, there is no indecision. There is no decision fatigue in the process because they know exactly who they are, what they're doing, who it is that they're doing it for, how they plan on doing it, why they plan on doing it. They know exactly what they need to say, and they know exactly the things that the people that they need to say it to need to hear in order to get to the end goal, the ultimate goal of whatever the vision is for their brand. So, if you want support with that, I offer one-to-one brand clarity sessions. I'll link them down below in the description box as well as a pinned comment in the comment section. But other than that, girl, what did you think about this video? What are your thoughts? Are you experiencing decision fatigue in your life? Are you prone to being indecisive? Know that you're not alone, but I would love for you to share your experience and how you've struggled with that and how you're navigating it, honestly. In the comment section down below, you never know what your comment can do for somebody else. And again, if you need support with this type of work, I am offering one-to-one brand clarity sessions. And if that's just not something that you need in this season of your life, I hope that at the very least, this video reminded you that God cares about you. And yes, girl, he cares about the way you show up to create content. With that being said, I love you with the love of Jesus, and I will be seeing you in the next video. TTYL.